Couple disclaimers before we get into this. First of all, I am not a medical professional, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. And if you really feel the need to speak with a medical professional about some of these feelings that you may have, please do that. Don't think that this is enough to help you, this video right here. And secondly, because I know you're already thinking it, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you right now, no, this is not sponsored by BetterHelp. Hi everyone, my name is Becky Park. I am a part-time reseller. I've been reselling since December of 2017, and although I've only been doing this part-time, I have personally experienced many things about reselling that make it pretty difficult. And furthermore, I feel like lately I've been having many conversations with resellers about how they're just not happy. They're not happy reselling. They find themselves feeling very depressed, and there are a number of reasons why that is. And so I thought that we would unpack 8 of those reasons together and not only talk about these things, because I think it's important to get these things out in the open and just to know that you're not alone in feeling this way, but to also talk about some of the things that I would personally do to combat the reasons why we as resellers can sometimes feel down in the dumps. So let's start by talking about I know the thing that's hardest for me, which is sales determining my sense of self-worth. Let me know if you're anything like me, but basically the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I will get my phone that is charging next to me on the nightstand, and I will look at it to see if I've sold anything while I was asleep. And if not, basically my day is doomed to suck.
We're doomed, I tell you.
But if I have sold a thing or two, I'm like, this is gonna be a good day. Basically, I let whether or not I made sales throughout my sleeping time, I let that determine whether or not I'm gonna have a good day. Is that not the most ridiculous thing ever? But please let me know in the comments that I'm not alone in this. I think a lot of us do this, and whether it's how many sales you made while you were asleep or just how many sales you made that day, I think a lot of us place our self-worth in the amount of money that we're earning as a reseller, in the number of sales that we make. And if that number is lower, we think less of ourselves. And if that number is higher, all of a sudden we're on cloud 9. We think we're pretty amazing. And it shouldn't be like that, because we're a lot more than just resellers. We have a lot more to contribute to the world, and we are a lot more to other people. I'm also a mother. I'm also a wife. I'm also a teacher. I do a lot of other things. The amount that makes its way into my bank account from my reselling business should not be the sole factor that determines how I feel about myself that day. So what can we do about that? To be honest, a lot of these things are hard. You know, when you talk to therapists or counselors or just people in that mental health space, they will say things like keep a gratitude journal, you know, write down the things that you're thankful for. They will say things like, you know, have kind of a mantra that you repeat to yourself about who you are and why you're worthy and all those kinds of things. You know, if you subscribe to a specific religion, there are things that those religions would say you should do to find peace within yourself. There are lots of things that you can do. I guess practically for me, at least at the very start of the day, I think what needs to change for me is I need to not turn to my phone first thing. I need to not look for validation from the different reselling platforms that I sell on. And instead, I need to just get out of bed. I need to go get ready for the day. I need to do something productive. You know, one thing I like to do first thing in the morning is workout. Man, it is 6 in the morning and I've already got my workout in. Like, I'm pretty awesome. I feel pretty good about myself and I just feel better than everyone. And if I can start the day like that and then look at my phone to see, okay, did I sell anything? Even if I didn't, it's like I already have a win in the fact that I've already done something productive. And I think that's the practical thing that I can do, because I don't know about you. I'm not a big journal person. I'm not a big like meditation person, but I think just something as practical as, okay, if this is where I find my self-worth in the morning, I'm just going to take this away. I'm just not going to give myself the opportunity to either feel really good about myself for dumb reasons or to feel like the day is going to suck because I didn't have sales. If I don't check it, I'll never know, and instead I'll find myself a win somewhere else. The second reason that a lot of resellers tell me they're just unhappy is because reselling is so lonely. It is primarily, honestly, something that most resellers do by themselves. There are some resellers out there who resell as a couple or as a family, and they are the cutest. I love Ginger Marvin. I love Jack and Ryan. I love these power couples who do this as a unit. I know I don't have that. I know a lot of you watching do not have that. This is something that you do by yourself. And furthermore, sometimes the people closest to you just don't even understand it. They don't really get it. They are not super supportive of it, which makes it even harder and makes it feel even more isolating. Everything that we do, from sourcing to photographing to listing to shipping, these are things that we do by ourselves. And I think that we as people are meant to be around other people. And I think even if you're introverted, there is a certain amount of needing to be around other people and needing to be in the presence of people who love us and who we love. There's something about that that feeds our soul. And the less of that we have, the harder our day to day becomes. This is something that I personally don't struggle with very much because the majority of my day, especially during the school year, is at school with children all day long. And in fact, I wish I could have more alone time, but I know that that's not the case for those of you, especially who are reselling full time and you're just kind of locked in your dungeon of a reselling space by yourself for hours on end. So what can we do about that? What is the cure for feeling lonely, for feeling isolated? I think you just got to be really purposeful about carving out time to spend time with the people that you love. Whether it's saying, hey, at every hour, like every hour that I've put into my reselling business, whether I've been photographing or listing, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go for a short walk, and while I'm walking, I'm going to call, someone in my family and have a quick chat with them, or I'm going to call a friend. Whether it means at the beginning of the week, you schedule out at least, 2 or 3 times that you're going to get together with different people in the flesh. You're going to go out to dinner with someone. You're going to go for a walk with someone. You're going to, FaceTime with someone. Schedule things out so that they actually happen versus saying, yeah, at some point this week, I'm going to, call my best friend and we'll FaceTime. If it's not scheduled, it's not going to happen. So schedule things in your calendar and make those non-negotiables. It doesn't matter if you haven't hit the number of listings that you were hoping to list that day. It doesn't matter if you don't have enough inventory to photograph tomorrow. You have to prioritize your relationships, especially with those who truly feed your soul. So make sure that you are making time throughout the day to call people, spend time with people, and that you are scheduling those things out at the beginning of the week to make sure that it happens. Another thing that I think would be really fun, and even in a smaller town like where I live, I think this is doable, but maybe you could go on Facebook or on Instagram and see if there is a community of resellers near you in your area. Again, even in my smaller college town, there's a good number of resellers, and if I really wanted to, I don't think it would be very difficult at all to organize like a monthly meetup or hangout or sourcing event or something like that, just so you could be around like-minded people. Because like I said earlier, for some of us, I think the isolating piece of reselling is that we're the only ones that we know in real life who do it, and we want to talk about it with other people, and we want to nerd out about it, and we want to have a sourcing buddy, but nobody that we know really wants to do those things. And so if you're able to find other people in your area where maybe you can get together and talk strategies or talk business, or maybe you can go sourcing together, that would be a really wonderful way to spend time with people who are passionate about the things that you're passionate about. And not only that, I think it also makes you better and stronger as a reseller. They say that Mr. Beast, when he was in high school, I think he had like 2 other friends, and every day they would sit and talk about YouTube for a minimum of 30 minutes, and they would just brainstorm about how to YouTube and how to become better at it. And now, as a result, Mr. Beast is Mr. Beast. There's something about working together or brainstorming with people who want to become better. When like-minded people come together and push each other to be better, you're gonna become better. That's just how that works. And so I bet if you were to put some feelers out there, you could find a community of people who love reselling just as much as you do. And if not in person, there are online communities. There's things like Resellers Edge University that Kaylee Elaine and Trash Pandas do. There are Facebook groups. I'm a part of a ton of them. I'm only a lurker. Poshmark tips and tricks. There's a bunch on Facebook Facebook. And I'm there because sometimes I learn things. I don't get super involved because a lot of times I find those places to be a little toxic. It's a lot of people venting. It's a lot of people complaining about different things. But you can kind of see who the bright lights in those communities are. Maybe you can private message them. And again, maybe build an online community that I think could be really beautiful and wonderful. And you could do the same thing on Instagram. The third reason a lot of resellers tell me they're depressed or just unhappy is because they have no work-life balance. It's too much work and too little life. And this does have to also do a little bit with what we just talked about, which is feeling lonely and isolated and not really making time for other people. But I do think that many resellers, myself included, fall into the trap of work, 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 because the way that reselling works truly is the more you put in, the more you get out. And the reason we got into this is because we want to make money, and we know and understand that the more time we put into it, the more we list, the more we tweak our listings, the more X, Y, and Z, the more potential there is to make more money. But at what cost? If we are working ourselves into the ground and we're not spending time with the people we love, if we're not getting outside and getting vitamin D, if we're not moving our bodies and we're constantly ill and we're not eating right, how hard are we willing to work? At what cost? And I think this is a hard balance for people to figure out. And it's especially hard because, especially on places like social media, people who do grind the hardest are often recognized and applauded. And people are like, wow, like I wish I could post the kind of numbers you do. I wish I could work as hard as you do. I wish I could put in as many hours as you do. And that's not to say that the people who do those things are messed up and bad and they don't have any work-life balance, because we don't really know what's going on, right? But I know for myself, again, if I don't almost schedule out the day and prioritize what needs to get prioritized, I have the potential to just work. And when my head hits the pillow at night, I think to myself, oh my God, like I didn't really do anything except photograph and list and ship. That's all I did with my day. And that's kind of scary. So instead, like I said earlier, the first thing I do when I wake up is I get a workout in so that it's out of the way. I've done it. I've moved my body. I feel really good about it. And I make it a point that if at any point during the day, a child of mine asks me to do something, if my daughter wants to play volleyball, if my son wants to, I don't know, his big thing right now is like gemstones, and like he finds cool ones online and he wants to show me, or, you know, if he wants to play a game or something. If a child of mine says, can we blank? I say yes. I put down what I'm doing. If I'm like literally in the middle of photographing something, I'll say, okay, in 5 minutes. But I say yes because even though it's kind of ruining my flow, even though like there are 3 more listings that I want to get to, I'm going to get to them later. It's fine. But right now, my kids are still at an age where they want to hang out with me, and they are the reason why I resell. It's so I can do things like give them piano lessons and gymnastics, and so we can go on trips and stuff. It makes no sense for me to work so hard behind a closed door to the point that when they want to spend time with me, I tell them I can't. That makes no sense. And when it gets to that point, that means I'm doing too much. I'm working too hard, and I am forgetting the reason why I started reselling in the first place. Same thing goes for my friends. I am fortunate to have a lot of friends who live in my area, and their kids are friends with my kids. I mean, it's really honestly wonderful, the community that I have here, and they want to hang out all the time. My husband always on the weekends is like, so what are we doing this weekend? Whose house are we going to? Who's inviting us over for dinner? Because it's always something. And again, I always have plans of grandeur of, you know, I'm going to list this many things today and I'm going to film this many videos. But if a friend says, hey, you want to come over for dinner, bring your kids, let's blah, 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 my answer is always yes. Sometimes I may not be able to go the second that they want me to come, but I will make it there eventually. I am going to always spend time with the people that I love because, and I know this is so cliche, at the end of our lives, I'm not going to say, man, I wish I had put up 14 more listings. I'm going to say that I wish I had spent more time with my family and my friends. And rather than miss out on the opportunity to do that right now, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to do it right now. And I'll find time to list later. If I have to stay up a little bit later, if I have to wake up a little bit earlier, I can do that. But if the people in my life that I love want to spend time with me, then I want to spend time with them too. But how do you find that work-life balance? You have to plug into your schedule your non-negotiables. So for me, it's moving my body, it's making sure I eat, it's making sure I spend time with the people that I want to spend time with, and then I can fill in into the gaps my reselling business, when I'm going to photograph, when I'm going to go out and source, when I'm going to list. But I put those more important things in place first and then reselling, because I know myself well enough to know I like the game too much. I like the game of reselling. I like to see how hard I can push myself, how many listings I can pump out, how many photographs I can take. That game is very enjoyable for me. And so I know if I'm not careful, if I don't schedule those other things in first, reselling is going to come first. Reselling is going to take over my life. And that's why I have to plug in the things that are most important to me so that I make sure that they happen. The fourth reason a lot of resellers find themselves really unhappy is because they are not in control of the economy. A lot of times we do everything in our power to set ourselves up for success. We find great inventory, we take great pictures, we learn how to create the best listings. And then the market crashes, and then there's a pandemic, and then there's something that's completely out of our control, and all of a sudden, all of the people in the world that we hope find our listings online and clamor over each other to buy our listings, everyone closes up their pocketbooks and nobody wants to spend any money. And we're not in control of that. We're in control of all these other things, but we cannot go into people's homes and force them to buy the items that we have listed for sale. And that's a scary thing, that lack of control, that feeling of, I did everything right. I did everything that I could, and yet the sales aren't coming. And that's a scary and sad and upsetting thing. And I don't have a cure for it. I don't have a cute little way to fix that. There's no journal that you can write in that will make people want to spend their money. There's no amount of scheduling or calendar manipulation that will cause eBay to all of a sudden favor you and your listings. It is what it is, and that is super scary. And all I can say on my end, when we were going through those times, when we were going through the pandemic and through recessions and through market crashes and things like that, I just kept doing what I could on my end. Anything that I did have control over, I could control whether or not I listed. I could control whether or not I ran sales on eBay and sent messages on Poshmark. Anything that I had control over, I just did. And I did to the best of my ability. And I had to just keep telling myself, this too shall pass. But other than that, I don't really got nothing for you. And I get it. It's hard. The fifth reason why a lot of resellers are upset and depressed is similar. It's that they're not in control of the platforms that they sell on. And, I feel like resellers almost take it personally. They're like, Poshmark, I gave so much to you, and then you turn around and you do this to me? We feel some of these changes on a personal level, like these platforms are out to get us, when in reality, they're just looking out for themselves. They're looking at their bottom line and they're asking themselves, what can we do as a company to make more money and to stay afloat and to be profitable? And when I look at it like that versus, again, taking it very personally, it makes more sense. Like, I make decisions on a daily basis for my reselling business by looking at my bottom line, by looking at what things will make me more money, and I make adjustments accordingly. And that's what these reselling platforms are doing. But I understand as well why resellers would get really upset, especially when we feel like we just figured out how to work within the reselling platform based off of the last time that they came out with updates, and now we got to reconfigure everything all over again. We've just kind of settled into our schedule and into our system of how we're going to run our business on this platform and that platform, and then they go and make all these changes. And I get it. It's frustrating. I myself got that dreaded email yesterday from Poshmark stating that I have been suspended from listing because I deleted too many listings in a short span of time. I appealed it, and we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm sitting here without the ability to list on Poshmark due to what I think is a really stupid new update that they just came out with. And I get it. It sucks. And it sucks because a lot of people went into reselling to be their own boss. And yet, it's things like this that make us feel very much like we are not our own boss. We have people and companies that we have to answer to, and that's difficult and it's hard to swallow. And it's the reason why a lot of resellers are stressed out and unhappy. For me, very similar to what I said about the last reason, I just work as hard as I can with the things that I have any control over. I can't list on Poshmark? Fine. I'm just gonna list as many items as I can into eBay and Mercari and Depop. And when I get my listing privileges back, I will take those listings that I started on List Perfectly and I will push them out to Poshmark at a later date. It's fine. Is it gonna mess me up in the Poshmark algorithm? Probably. And is that frustrating? It is. It's not in my control though. They've done what they've done. And at this point, all I can do is what I have the power to do, which is continue listing on the other platforms. I can, if I want, go into some of these Poshmark Facebook groups and rant and rave. I can make an Instagram post about how upset I am. And while I may get the validation from other people being like, yeah, I feel that way too. And yeah, Poshmark sucks. And it might make me feel a little bit better, but I think really all it does is fuel my anger. And I don't know how productive that is. So for me, my mentality has always been, that's fine. I have no control over what's happening over here. So let me pivot and focus more of my attention over here. The sixth reason why I hear from a lot of resellers, they are in a rough space mentally, is because FOMO equals burnout. And what I mean by that is a lot of times resellers are always on the grind, not because they want to, but because they feel like they have to. Like they're so worried that, oh, if I don't go out this weekend to the garage sales, I might miss something amazing. There's probably something amazing in one of the houses that I'm going to go to. I have to go out and source even though I already have a ton of great stuff at home. Or it's that feeling you get after an hour of doom scrolling on Instagram and you're like, oh my gosh, all these resellers are doing amazing and I have nothing to show for myself. Like I need to get out there. I need to put up a huge number of listings today. I need to make some amazing sales because everyone else is doing it. How come I'm not doing it? And it's this constant push to just keep going and keep working and work harder than you did yesterday. And it's exhausting and it leads to burnout. And it leads to people getting sick. It leads to people feeling so unmotivated. You know, they see all the work that they have to do and they're so overwhelmed before they even start that they can't even get themselves to begin. And they have once again lost sight of why they went into reselling in the first place. This is definitely something that I still struggle with. And I've done a few things to combat these feelings. On the front of feeling like I have to continually go out and source, otherwise I'm going to miss out on some of the great stuff. I have gotten better with that, in that every time I see a sourcing opportunity come up, I force myself to look at all of the inventory that I already have that needs to be listed. And that is sobering. To look at that bedroom over there that is covered in clothing from an estate sale that I went to not long ago. When I look at that room, I'm like, I think I'm good for now. I don't think I need to go to that consignment store, even though they're running a 75% off sale. I think I'm good. I'll get them the next time around. Could there be something amazing there? There sure could, but I also have amazing things in the room already. Another thing that might make more sense, given your situation, if you have a garment rack, let's say, maybe one thing you could do is to put everything that you have waiting to be photographed and listed on that garment rack. And as long as there is something on that garment rack, or maybe as long as, half of that garment rack is filled, you're not allowed to go out and source. And that will hopefully give you the motivation to go ahead and list the items that you already have versus just adding to your death pile. And if you have any other hacks for this, let me know down in the description below. I'm sure so many of you have figured out really great ways to just kind of rein it in and keep yourselves under control. But when it comes to the burnout that is a result of constantly comparing ourselves to other resellers and wanting to push ourselves to do as much as other resellers, honestly, I have cut down so much, like by 99%, how much reselling content I consume. I honestly probably go on my reselling Instagram account, and really that's like the only active Instagram account that I have, but I probably check it like 2 to 3 times a week, and when I do, I'm on there for maybe like 5 minutes, because I don't know, there's just this feeling of like, not dread, but just, I don't know, it's a yucky feeling. I don't like it. I don't like how I feel and how I respond when I see other people's reselling contents. Part of my like visceral response to being on Instagram is truthfully anger. And it's anger because I see so many people simply posting their highlight reels, and I get angry because I feel like that is part of why people feel the way that they feel. I don't feel like there are a lot of people showing all of the different aspects of what reselling is like, because the truth is, a lot of the time it sucks, and there's a lot of really crappy parts of reselling, like returns, like getting something home that you're so excited about, but then there's a huge flaw. Like, there are so many things about reselling that are extremely frustrating, and yet time after time, all you see on Instagram are people's package posts and people talking about their numbers and people being like, I broke this record on whatnot. And it's like, that's great. But I don't know, maybe I'm just like not in the space right now to see those things. And I'm so much happier by not looking at all of that stuff. And maybe if you're anything like me, maybe by just simply consuming a little bit less content from other people, especially those who only show you the highlight reels, maybe that will take a huge weight off of your chest and your shoulders, because now you're not going to feel like you're in direct competition with them. And it's never a competition. Competing against people on the internet is one of the dumbest things you can do, because you're not comparing apples to apples. You sitting there comparing yourself to me would be the dumbest thing you could do, because we are not in the same context. Me comparing myself to, one of these power couples that I talked about, to like Ginger Marvin, would be the stupidest thing that I could do, because my business is never going to look like theirs. They are a 2-person full-time team. They live in Colorado. I live in Illinois. There's just like so many differences. I could go on and on about all the different things. That doesn't make what they do any less amazing, but it also doesn't make what I do any less amazing. Everyone is just out here doing our best, and the less I see of what everyone else is doing, the more I kind of quiet the noise of everything happening out here. Man, it just helps me lock in and just kind of put my head down and get to work with far less anxiety and anger, and I don't know, it's like not really being on Instagram is one of the best decisions that I have made in a very long time. And truthfully, like one of the only reasons I get on Instagram in the first place is just to see if people have DM'd me. And if you have DM'd me like in the past 6 months or so, you probably have gotten a message from me being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's been like 3 weeks since you sent this. Is this still relevant? Like, do you still have this question? Because I'm just so bad at checking my DMs, because I just don't go on Instagram anymore. The 7th reason that I hear from a lot of resellers they are just not in a good headspace is because they are overwhelmed. And they're overwhelmed for a lot of the reasons that we already talked about. They're overwhelmed feeling like, I think my business is supposed to look like this because this is what everyone else's business looks like, and it doesn't. Like, am I doing something wrong? So some of feeling overwhelmed comes from that. But truthfully, where I think most people feel overwhelmed is by their own inventory. A lot of people go out and source to their heart's content because they enjoy the hunt. That's everyone's favorite part of reselling. And then they bring it home and add it to their collection, and they're like, my God, what have I done?
What have I done?
And it's overwhelming because they have this pile of stuff that they have to tackle. They have to do something with it, and it becomes overwhelming. And not only is it overwhelming because it's a physical reminder of the overwhelming amount of work that it's going to be to list those items, but it's also overwhelming from a physical standpoint, like just being surrounded by clutter and having your space filled with stuff that you don't really have a plan for how you're going to deal with it. Especially for people living in smaller spaces. If you live in a condo or a smaller home and your inventory is spilling out into your living spaces, again, that gets really stressful, especially if you have other people living in your home with you and they're complaining about how your inventory has spilled out into their spaces. And this is coming from experience. Where we used to live, my reselling space was shared with my kids' playroom. And I'm going to be honest with you, it really wasn't much of a playroom because there was so much crap in there. There was all of my reselling business stuff, all of my shipping equipment and all that stuff, and also all of my inventory. And a lot of it was organized, but also there was a lot of it that wasn't. And then there were periods where, I would just have really great sourcing opportunities. I would have buyouts, or I would get like those, 300-pound bulk rescue boxes from ThredUp. And we would have boxes of clothes in our living room. Like, my reselling stuff really infiltrated all over the house. And it made living in that house a lot more stressful because at every turn, I was reminded that there's work I need to do. There's work I need to do. There's something I need to list. And it's like I could never get away from it. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, I think a lot of people are overwhelmed with reselling because it's not a clock in, clock out type of job. Most of our business happens on our phone. We get notifications. I had my phone upside down. We get notifications all the live long day from all the reselling platforms that we live on. We're constantly checking to see if, things are being watched or if we need to counter someone's offer. We are on the entire day, and that is extremely stressful. So let's talk about some of the ways that I have thought of to combat those feelings of being overwhelmed. The first part of being overwhelmed that we talked about had to do with inventory. And we talked a little earlier about, ways to manage our inventory so we're not constantly bringing in too much. One thing that has helped me, and it took moving into a bigger house, is all of my inventory now lives in this space that I am in right now. As soon as I come home from sourcing, I bring everything downstairs and I put it in this room. And that way it's not in anyone else's living space. That way when I am upstairs, when I'm in the kitchen, when I'm in the living room, when I'm in my bedroom, there is no reminder anywhere, no physical reminder of my reselling business. And therefore I'm able to focus on, whatever reason I have for being in my bedroom or in the living room, usually which is like to be with my family and stuff. I'm not like looking over my shoulder at this pile of clothes that's hanging out in my living room with us that needs to be listed. So it helps to kind of contain all of your inventory in a space. It also helps to have some sort of system so that there's order to your death pile or your money pile, if you want to call it that. For me, I have my bins, I have racks that serve a specific purpose. I don't just have piles of stuff that look really messy, but instead, yes, it's a mess, but it's an organized mess. And I know exactly where I need to go when it's time to list. And for me, even though I have a lot of inventory waiting to get listed in my home, it's not overwhelming because I know exactly what's going on. And that's part of it, right? I think every person needs to know, what is my breaking point? At what point am I going to start feeling overwhelmed, where it gets hard to breathe, where, there's like a weight kind of crushing me? Is it when I have run out of space on my garment rack? Is it when all of my inventory can no longer fit in this one room? You have to figure out where your breaking point is and make sure that you don't allow yourself to get there. And then finally, when it comes to feeling overwhelmed by just not being able to clock out from reselling, create a schedule for yourself so that you can. Again, there are a lot of different ways to do this, and a lot of it is very specific to your specific situation, to your space. For me, when it comes to my phone at least, and I've talked about this app before, and this is not sponsored in any way by this app, but I found an app called ClearSpace, and one thing that I like about ClearSpace is it basically locks up on your phone whatever apps you want it to lock up, and you can set for yourself boundaries in regards to like what time you're allowed to look at those apps, or things you have to do before you're allowed to open that app, or even ways that you have to be able to earn the right to open up that app. So for me, I got that app so that I would restrict my Facebook and Instagram usage, and it worked really well, which is why I'm like barely on Instagram anymore. I had it set up to where I had to earn the right to use Facebook or Instagram by taking a certain number of steps. So like for every 1,000 steps that I took, I earned 5 minutes of Facebook time. And what that did is it forced me to move more, which was one of my goals, but it also really limited the amount of time that I spent on those apps because I could only earn so many minutes a day. So if you find that you're just constantly on your phone because you're always looking at Poshmark and eBay and all those kinds of things, maybe you set it up to where, okay, I can still look at those apps if I want, but only if I've earned the right to look at those apps by taking a certain number of steps. You can also set it up to where you have to do like squats or you have to do push-ups, whatever way you want to set it up. That way you're a lot more cognizant of how much time you're actually spending on those apps because you have to earn the right to use them. Another thing that you could do is to literally create work hours for yourself, to say, I'm gonna work from 9 to 5 and I'm gonna give myself a lunch break in between. But after 5, I'm done. Again, maybe you just lock up all of your reselling platforms on your phone. You just don't go on your laptop after 5, and you say, after a certain time, that's when I spend time with my family. That's when I spend time with my friends. That's when I give myself the things that I need to refuel, like going out for a walk or doing one of my many other hobbies. I'm not going to just do reselling all the live long day. And if we set parameters for ourselves, we can do it. We can make it so that we are not tied to this or to our laptop all day long and feeling that constant sense of, oh God, I need to do that. Oh God, I need to pay attention to this. And we can be wholly committed to the other parts of our life, after a certain time. And then finally, I think the reason why so many resellers are unhappy is because they feel stuck. They feel like, I'm working as hard as I can. I can't get past this. They've plateaued. I work as hard as I can, but I can only make $500 a week, and there is nothing more than that I can do. I work as hard as I can. I can only list 10 items a day. That's all I can do. And I can't get past that, but I so desperately want to. I think a lot of times as humans, we're always pushing for that next level, for that next step. When you work in an office setting or even like at McDonald's or something, you're kind of always working for that promotion. You're working for that next level up. And a lot of times as resellers, we feel like we just can't get there unless we go the route of hiring people, and we don't know if that's something that we want to do. So people feel stuck and people feel like this is all I can do. I'm not going to be able to achieve any more than this. And I guess my biggest tip in that situation would be to say, look at the systems you already have in place. Is there any room or space within those systems to become even more efficient? For example, with myself, my daily listing goal is to list 5 items a day. And I don't have a set schedule as to when that happens. It's just kind of when I can squeeze it in. But if I were to set a specific time during the day and almost set like a timer, I think it would push me to do it a lot faster versus doing it at like a leisurely pace with a show in the background. If I were to take that part of my day seriously, I bet I could get through it a lot faster and find more time to even squeeze in another listing or two. If you were to really take a good look at the way that you source and to ask yourself, okay, am I being the most efficient with my sourcing? When I go out, am I checking the sell-through rate of items? Am I picking up things that are going to sell quickly? Or am I picking up things and paying a lot of money for them that are just going to sit around for a while, which is part of the reason why I can't get past this certain number as far as profit is concerned? Maybe we look at our system that we have in place for photographing. Is there a little tweak we can make to help things go a little bit faster so that we can squeeze in 1 or 2 more items to photograph in our allotted time? And honestly, I think one of the best ways to see where there are cracks in your systems is to ask someone else. Like, for example, I remember there was a time frame when I was teaching one of my really good friends and my sister-in-law how to resell, because there was a time when we were like, we could do this together and we could quit our jobs and just start this huge reselling business. Obviously, that did not happen, but I taught them how to list, I taught them how to photograph, I taught them how to do all of the things. And I remember when I sat down to teach them how to list, there were a few times when they were like, how come you do that? Why don't you do this? And I'm like, that would be so much faster. Like, that makes so much sense. Or I remember I taught my husband how to photograph because sometimes he'll photograph items for me. That happens like once a year, okay? But I remember I was teaching him how to photograph and he was like, how come you do this thing first? Like, why don't you do that and then do this? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like that actually would save so much time. And even if it's only saving 30 seconds per listing, 30 seconds plus 30 seconds plus 30 seconds, like you just keep adding up those 30 seconds and it adds up to a lot. A lot of times we get stuck in our ways and we think that that's the best and only way to do something. But if you were to bring someone else in and show them how your system works, they might be able to see the cracks in your system or ways to make your systems more efficient because they're looking at it from the outside. They're not married to it. Like this isn't how they list. Maybe they're not even resellers, but they are going to be able to look from the outside at your systems objectively and perhaps find ways that you could squeeze even a little bit more time and efficiency out of your current existing systems. All of that to say, if you find yourself deeply unhappy, if you are struggling with anxiety and feeling overwhelmed, I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know there are so many people who have expressed those same feelings to me, and so many times that I have felt those things myself. I want you to know that you're not alone, but I also want you to know that you don't have to be stuck in those feelings. I want you to know that there are things that you can do. You deserve more than to only have those kinds of feelings in your daily life. I do think that there's room in a reseller's life for joy and for hope and for happiness. I think that because I feel that. And I think I feel that because, kind of going back to one of the first things that we talked about, I make room in my day for the things that feed me and for the things that bring me joy. And does it bring me joy when I make a big sale, or when something flips really quickly, or when someone sends me a really nice note about an item that they bought from me? Of course it does. It's part of what fills my cup for the day, but I promise you this, if I didn't have these other things in my life, reselling alone can only fill up so much of this cup. Reselling alone is gonna give me maybe 1/100th of it, because I cannot place my self-worth in what kind of money I'm able to earn from my reselling business or how many sales come in on a daily basis. I refuse to let that define me as a person and to determine whether or not I'm happy that day. And if you are struggling with how to step away from that, then BetterHelp, I'm just joking, I told you this was not sponsored by BetterHelp, but maybe you do need to speak with someone, or maybe you just simply need to take a small step back from your reselling business and ask yourself, what are the things that fill my cup? What are the things that bring me the most joy? And how can I put more of that into my life? So I know this isn't the typical type of content that I post here on YouTube, but I hope you found it helpful. I hope it was like a nice warm hug from this part of the screen to you. And I hope you know and understand that the only reason I would make this video is because I do care deeply about you and I want what's best for you. I want you to be happy and I want your life to be filled with joy and wonder and all of the amazing things, because you deserve it. So thank you for spending your time with me. On your way out, if you don't mind hitting that like button, I would super duper appreciate it. But take a moment right now that you're done watching this video, take a moment to do something that's just for you. Not for your reselling business, but just for you. Let me know down in the comments what that thing is, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.